Have you ever met an attractive, ambitious Indian guy? You guys click, there seems to be a connection, and then he just doesn't ask you out. In fact, even worse, he doesn't do anything. You're not even sure if he likes women. Is he gay? My name is Malaika Neri. I'm a professional Indian matchmaker. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through exactly why Indian guys very often won't take action. It's not that they don't want to, they like you just as much as you might like them. But for some reason, they don't take action. We're going to dive into exactly why they don't take action. They don't ask women out. They know it, it's not a mystery. And what to do if you want to date an attractive, ambitious Indian guy and marry one, fall in love, settle down, start a beautiful family together. The first thing to bear in mind when meeting and dating Indian men is that Indian men are under enormous pressure to succeed. I don't think I've met a single Indian man in my entire life who hasn't dealt with this pressure. The pressure comes from our families, certainly, but it can also come from, oh, we're this kind of family. Everyone in our family is a lawyer. Everyone in our family is hardworking. Everyone in our family did well at school. It comes from the school system. Even if you didn't grow up in India, the case is the same for many NRIs, non resident Indians, and especially for Indian Americans who grew up outside India, the children of Indian immigrants. I experienced this myself when I moved to the United States as a teenager to study. And the quality of education that I was getting in the American school system was far worse than what I was getting in India. But I still had so much pressure from my family to perform well. And when I wasn't the valedictorian of my class, I was like, am I doing something wrong? Is there a problem with me? Even at that young age, even though most of the children at my school were not doing very well at all. So it's not really about the environment. It's about the fact that in our Indian culture, this pressure to succeed is very common, and Indian men have dealt with it from the time that they are embryos. Therefore, when you are meeting and dating Indian men, you have to bear in mind that it's not that they are worried about you and about whether you will reject them and they will not succeed, or that you are putting pressure on them. It's that they're under pressure in general. So the way that they respond to you is their response to the pressure they're feeling in general and not specifically to you. The second thing to bear in mind is that because they feel so much pressure to succeed, they're also worried about not being good enough. Most of the time, men in their 30s and definitely men in their 20s are still working towards their career goals. So they are worried about not being good enough for everyone, for society, but especially in front of a woman who they know is probably looking for a husband. Most men, Indian men, American men, European men, are trying to be successful in the eyes of their father. This is something that I learned from my mentor, Alex Hormozy, who is today a very successful serial entrepreneur, multimillionaire on his way to being a billionaire, compares himself to Warren Buffett. And he says that for the first 6 years of his career, until he sold his first company, he was constantly worrying about what his father thought of him. He says in one of his videos that his definition of success was, what does my father think? Have I made more money than my father has made in his entire life? And his father was a surgeon. His father is a wealthy man. But because Alex Hormozy was constantly comparing himself to his father, until he made more money in his 20s than his father had made in his entire life, he wasn't convinced of his own success. You might think this is some crazy Freudian psychodrama. It's not. It's just how men are programmed. They compare themselves to their father's success and to other men in their immediate environment, not to you. So that tends to be their priority in their 20s and 30s, to either surpass their parents or to meet their parents' definition of success. Men tend to only actively pursue relationships when they have achieved a certain career milestone that to them signals, okay, now I can be a provider. Whether or not a man wants to do 50-50 or he wants to be a stay-at-home dad, he will only actively pursue a relationship when he feels that he can provide. Example, a guy who's just graduated medical school, or he's just finished residency, or he's just gotten a promotion. I've noticed that the men who have pursued me were either on a career track where they felt stable and comfortable, or that they were already at their career peak, so they felt secure, financially secure. If a guy is married and he is not financially stable, it's because someone made him get married. And this applies even to white guys. I have seen it firsthand in my personal network time and time again. The men who got married in their 20s, and many of the men who get married in their 30s, it was semi-arranged. Someone told them, you need to get married now. It was either the girl's family, the woman's family, or his family, or both. So remember, if a guy isn't asking you out, it's not about you. It's about the way men are in their 20s and 30s. Takeaway from part number one: if a guy is not asking you out, don't take it personally. It is not about you. Now, this might sound confusing, but it's a message that you have to integrate. Similarly, don't assume that he's not interested in you just because he's hesitating. Remember, men are scaredy cats in their 20s and 30s. They're afraid of looking like a fool. They're afraid of rejection. And they tend to take fewer risks because they feel like they cannot, unless they're one of these daredevils who are nomads and gallivanting all over the world and traveling constantly. And even those guys tend to have a fear of being made a fool of by a woman unless the woman is pursuing them. And I have found this to be the case everywhere in the world that I have traveled, unless I make it vastly clear to the guy, hey, I really like you. Hey, I think we should date. Hey, I think we should be together. Hey, I'm not going to reject you. In fact, the very opposite. I'm going to love you with everything that I have. They don't take action because they are afraid. And finally, timing is everything. If a guy isn't asking you out right now, it doesn't mean he'll never ask you out. It just means that he's afraid. Let's move on to how to get him to ask you out. How do you actually do that? If you like a guy, he's not making a move, and you're like, what is going on? I'm pretty sure we have a connection, but he's not taking any action. Should I just move on? There are so many fish in the sea, but I really like this one guy. And I think that we would make a great couple. So the point is that it is possible. You can do this, but it's not about the actions that you're taking, but the energy with which you are leading. Our goal is to make it clear that you are open to him without chasing him. Remember, men are hunters. They need to be in the position of chasing. They need to lead. They need to feel like you are following them and everything was their brilliant idea. Blame men's fragile egos. Go right ahead. But the point is that we want to meet and marry men. So we have to do whatever it takes to make men feel safe enough to meet and marry us in return. I have found that instead of waiting for a guy to make the first move, we need to drop hints. And by hints, I mean strong, direct suggestions. A guy just yesterday, I was on a date with a guy, and we had agreed to meet for coffee, but we hadn't agreed on the location. And I wasn't going to propose the location. I wasn't going to initiate. I wasn't going to say, hey, by the way, you haven't sent me the location. Where are we meeting today? I did absolutely nothing. Then a few hours before the date, he texted me to say, hey, do you have any ideas for where we can go today to have coffee? Now, he's new in town. I'm not. So I completely excused him for not knowing many locations. Many women categorize this as laziness. Remember, until you're his wife, you are not his top priority. Until you're his wife or his fiance. And that's okay. Like by the time a guy makes you the top priority, the number one priority in his life, you are probably his wife or fiance or live-in girlfriend. And even then, I don't think so. I think that you need to be his wife or his fiance. So I didn't assume that I was his top priority. In fact, he told me that he had a lot going on that day. So I wasn't fussed. He texted me a few hours before. And instead of getting annoyed, I said, hey, yeah, there's this one place I've been meaning to check out myself. So again, really low key. I didn't make it about him. I didn't make it about our date. I just said, here's this one place. Seems kind of nice. I've been meaning to check it out. I sent him the location on Google Maps, making it super simple. He immediately responded and said, sounds great. Then, to make it seem like his idea, I followed up with him. I said, so is that where we're meeting? Notice how I'm not making it about him. I'm not making it about me, and I'm not making it about the date. I'm just making it about the location, which is the only thing in question right now. Again, he responded immediately and said, yes. We proceeded to meet there. He opened the door for me. He selected the table. He let me have the inside seat. He ordered our coffees. He paid for our coffees. He was a perfect gentleman. He was kind and respectful. He laughed. We laughed together. It was a really wonderful time. And I had a great date. But if I had made it a big deal about, oh my gosh, she hasn't picked a location. Oh my gosh, she's not leaving. Oh my gosh, she's being lazy. It would have killed the date before it began. And I would have ruined an opportunity to meet and date a husband material man. So my invitation to you is drop heavy hints and make it very easy for him. Men are not being lazy because they're lazy. They're being lazy because they don't know. They're not at the peak confidence level of their lives. And that is normal for all men in their 20s and 30s, almost all of them, except maybe the investment bankers. You want to be very warm and loving, just as I was. I said, this coffee bar sounds great. Not about the guy, but let him take the lead. Let him confirm the location. Let him open the door. Let him pay. I was prepared to pay. I had my wallet with me. I had money in my account, but I didn't take any action. I just sat there like a doll. If the guy is unsure, and many guys are unsure because they don't want to offend you either, just smile, make eye contact, and show him with your body language that you are open to letting him take the lead. So when me and this guy met at the restaurant, the location of that cafe was under construction, and the actual cafe, it was the wrong location on Google Maps, was like maybe 100 meters away. So like a few feet walk, right? And when he showed up, I said, oh, hi. And we hugged each other, just a very light, brief hug. And we talked to the guy. Again, I was like, okay, we need to find a new cafe. I wanted to jump into my masculine energy. And I just waited. And he said, oh, okay, the guy in front of the cafe told me it's up there. Let's walk there. And so I just followed him. And then we saw the place. And I said, oh, that looks really nice. And then he said, yeah. And we walked to the rest of the cafe. I stood in front of it and I didn't open the door. I waited for him to open the door and he opened the door. So my point being that whether a guy is driving you to a cafe, whether you're walking there together, do nothing. Literally nothing. Let him take the lead. Your job is to suggest and offer, and with your text messages, with your body language, with your words, to make your intentions clear. What you want, not what you think he should do. And if he's not making a move, let the friendship build naturally. Be warm, be kind, be gentle, be yourself. But remember, it's not about you. It's about his relationship with himself and how he is building his own confidence. Here is what you should avoid doing when you're trying to get a guy to ask you out. Don't ask him out directly. I have tried this. It always, 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 always fails, even if the guy really likes you, because men feel cornered. If you ask a guy out directly, it triggers his hunting instinct and he says, oh no, she's chasing me. I'm going to shut down. So he's not rejecting you. He's just shutting down the conversation because that is not how men operate. Secondly, don't behave like a bro. You're not a guy. The guy doesn't want you to be a guy. He wants you to be a cute and sexy woman who he wants to pursue. So your goal is not to take action. Your goal is to do nothing, but be present in his life. So he doesn't want a friend. He wants a wife, even if he doesn't say it directly. And finally, stop complaining that men never ask you out, that men don't take action, that men don't want something casual. Our words have a lot of power. Whatever we say comes true. So if you want men to ask you out, you have to stop complaining that they don't. Sounds simple, but true. Now, let's talk about the fact that this is a long game and you need to be patient. I am, generally speaking, an impatient person. I'm a Leo. I like things to happen like that. So I've always found it very hard to be patient. But again, coming back to my mentor, Alex Hormozy, he's always said, he's a business mentor, basically. He's always said that business success is just about sticking it out and playing the long game. It's not about being patient. It's about doing something else in the meanwhile. So similarly to when we invest our money, now I have my money in these S&P funds. They're only going to really bear fruit 30 years from now. And it's fine. It is very specifically an account that I do not touch, tax beneficial and all of that. But the point is that in the meanwhile, I'm not checking my account every day to say, how much am I making? What's happening? I know that I'm playing the long game financially, and I will get the benefits from the long game. So similarly, for guys, that you're playing the long game. It's not that you're waiting years and years and years to get benefits from interacting with them, but you have to understand that every guy has his own timeline. You can make it clear to him that you are interested, that this is the right time for you. but it might not be the right time for him, which is why you need to do rotational dating and meet lots of different men. It's going to be the right time for one of them. We just don't know which exact one. And most importantly, you need to respect his boundaries and his ambitions. So the guy that I met after we were having coffee for an hour, I was enjoying myself. I could have sat there for another hour and I had the time and space in my schedule. He said, "Hey, I've got stuff to do. I'm going to have to head out." And I said, "Cool, no problem." That lets the guy know that he is safe. And ultimately, respecting the guy's boundaries is about him feeling safe with you. After that, we proceeded to walk for another half an hour together. And I had to go in the opposite direction, but I was enjoying his company. I wanted to spend time with him. I wanted to chat with him more. So I walked with him. And then I said, "Oh, I'm going to grab a cab now and go to the different part of the neighborhood." And he hailed a cab for me. His masculine energy is a very direct indicator that he is taking the lead because he liked me. This is what you want to do. Go on his timeline, always let him lead. Men want to lead, it's in their nature. It's not even about you, it's just that they will lead because that is their nature. But they won't lead if we snuff out any opportunity they might have to lead. So instead of telling a guy like, "Oh my gosh, you're never available to hang out," just say something like, "I love how driven you are. I really admire a man who commits fully and wholeheartedly to building his career and to providing for his someday family." And that's going to make him feel like, "Oh my God, this woman is amazing. She believes in me. Let me ask her out." Remember that men are people and life can be hard for a lot of people. So he ultimately wants to see you as someone supportive, someone who accepts him, someone who understands him. And if a guy feels like you understand him, he's going to fall in love with you immediately. We want to get to that point where he feels like you deeply understand him. So your goal is to be a source of encouragement, not pressure. If you feel like he's taking too long, he's not asking you out, he's not making the right moves, your goal is both to stay open to other possibilities by meeting other people, but also to remind this guy that you accept him no matter what his behavior. You're a fan of him, you cheer him on, and you respect and admire him. So you become a source of peace and support rather than stress. I would avoid pressuring a guy to commit before he's ready, pressuring him to ask you out. In fact, with the guy who I met for coffee, I was like, "Hey, why don't we meet at this other awesome cafe next time?" And again, that's too much pressure. He didn't reply to my message. Of course, because it's too direct. It would have been really different if I said, "Hey, here's a coffee shop I just tried. Coffee's mediocre. I don't recommend it." Remember, we don't want to be head on with men because they, as hunters, perceive any head on interaction as a threat. You'll notice that guys themselves don't go out and sit face to face with each other having coffee. They'll go and do some activity together because men themselves feel threatened by this head on interaction. So we don't want to do that. We want to be present, but also make it clear to him what our intentions are. Our intentions are to get married, but not to that specific guy necessarily. You don't need to prove yourself around him. He knows you're awesome, you're beautiful, you're interesting and ambitious. He knows you're a wife material woman. You don't need to give him a PowerPoint about why you're so great by talking endlessly about yourself. The more silence you can create with the guy, the more he'll open up to you and the more that he feels safe to ask you out. And finally, no waiting around. The key is to meet and date lots of men so that one of them converts to a husband, not to focus on one specific guy and say, "That guy has to be my husband no matter what because I don't have any better options." No, do rotational dating, and I have lots of videos about this. Now, in closing, if you want to meet and marry an Indian man, number one, you need lots of options through rotational dating. And I can help you do this inside the Perfect Match program, where I introduce you to one attractive, ambitious guy every single week. And secondly, you need a strategy to A, constantly meet and date husband material men, and to find out which of those guys are actually serious. I would invite you to check out my video on now, soon, and never men so you understand the difference between men who want to commit and men who don't. But remember, Indian guys are ultimately under a lot of pressure. They need our love, they need our support, they need our tenderness. And that is our strength as women. My name is Malaika Neri. Thank you so much for watching. And please make sure that you subscribe to my channel for more videos on how to find the right guy for you.